I had spent my entire childhood believing that if I worked hard enough, my parents would eventually be proud of me. Every perfect grade, every science fair ribbon, every essay competition, every late-night study session felt like another brick in the bridge leading toward their approval. Instead, every achievement only seemed to remind them that I was chasing a dream they had already decided didn't belong to me. I grew up on a small human colony world where traditions survived longer than common sense. Plenty of families celebrated daughters becoming doctors, engineers, and starship captains. Mine wasn't one of them. My father had one favorite sentence. "A smart daughter scares away good husbands." He said it so often that even the neighbors could probably finish it for him. My mother never argued. She simply nodded and added her own version. "College fills girls' heads with ideas." Personally, I thought ideas were kind of the whole point of college. I had dreamed of attending the Interstellar Human Academy since I was 10 years old. It was the greatest university in our sector, where humans studied beside dozens of alien civilizations. Scientists, diplomats, engineers, explorers, they all graduated from there. I had posters of the campus covering my bedroom wall, while most girls my age decorated theirs with celebrities or fashion models. Every night, I imagined myself walking beneath the Academy's floating crystal towers, solving impossible engineering problems alongside students from planets I'd only read about. Whenever my father caught me staring at those posters, he'd shake his head. "You'll be staring at a kitchen someday instead." I'd usually smile politely. Inside, I was plotting orbital trajectories. After years of applications, exams, interviews, and enough studying to permanently stain my coffee mug, the acceptance letter finally arrived. I screamed so loudly that the neighbor's pet Glorbian, a fluffy alien creature with 6 ears and absolutely no survival instincts, jumped over the fence and landed in our vegetable garden. I didn't even care. I had done it. I had actually been accepted. The Academy wanted me. I held that letter like it was the most valuable thing in the galaxy. Unfortunately, my parents had scheduled the annual family dinner for that exact evening. Perfect timing. The dining table overflowed with food while aunts, uncles, cousins, and distant relatives filled every chair. Conversations bounced around the room until my father tapped his glass. "Anyone have news to share?" I stood, unable to stop smiling. "Actually, I do." Every face turned toward me. "I've been accepted into the Interstellar Human Academy." For exactly 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Then my grandmother smiled. It wasn't just a smile. It was the kind that said she'd been waiting years for this moment. "I knew you could do it," she whispered. Before I could thank her, my father laughed. Not a happy laugh. The loud, dismissive kind. "Oh, that's adorable." The room grew uncomfortable. My mother folded her napkin. "You actually applied?" "I did more than apply," I answered. "I got accepted." Dad leaned back in his chair. "No daughter of mine needs college." The sentence hit harder than I expected, even though I'd heard versions of it my whole life. One uncle awkwardly reached for another dinner roll. A cousin suddenly found his mashed potatoes fascinating. Someone coughed into their drink. My father continued as though delivering the wisdom of the century. "A woman belongs with her family. Not wasting years surrounded by professors and aliens." My mother nodded. "We've already spoken to Mr. Henderson." I blinked. "Who?" "The baker's son." I stared at her. "The one who's 34? He owns a successful bakery." "I don't even like bread that much." "He likes you. I've spoken to him twice." "He says you're quiet?" "That's because he talks about sourdough for 40 minutes without breathing." A few cousins snorted. One aunt tried, and failed, to hide her laughter behind a napkin. Dad glared around the table until everyone became serious again. "The discussion is over." I looked down at my acceptance letter. Years of work. Reduced to one sentence. Then I heard a chair scrape across the floor. Very slowly. My grandmother stood. At 80 years old, she wasn't tall. She wasn't physically intimidating. But somehow, The entire room became quiet the instant she straightened her back. She looked directly at my father. "When I was 18," she said calmly, "I was accepted into a university." I'd never heard this story. Neither had anyone else. "My parents told me exactly what you're telling your daughter today." Her voice never shook. "They said education would make me unsuitable for marriage." She smiled sadly. "So I stayed." Silence filled the room. "I married. Raised children. Worked every single day." She looked toward the window. "And every birthday, every graduation I attended, every scientist I saw on the news." She sighed. "I wondered what my life could have been." Her eyes returned to my father. "I have regretted that decision for 60 years. Nobody moved. Nobody even reached for dessert. Then Grandma reached into her purse, pulled out a set of old vehicle keys, and jingled them with a grin that instantly transformed her from heartbroken grandmother into mischievous troublemaker. "I'm not watching history repeat itself." She turned toward me. "Go pack." I blinked. "What? 20 minutes. 20? We're driving to the academy." Dad stood so quickly his chair nearly tipped over. "Mother, don't be ridiculous." She ignored him. "I've already booked the enrollment appointment." I stared. "You what?" "I've been expecting this argument for months." My grandmother winked. "I planned ahead." My mother looked horrified. "You can't just take her." Grandma shrugged. "Watch me." Dad crossed his arms. "I forbid it." She smiled sweetly. "Oh dear." Then she delivered the sentence that would become legendary in our family. "The wonderful thing about being 80 is that I've completely forgotten how to ask for permission." Half the table burst into laughter. Even my quiet uncle nearly choked on his drink. Dad's face turned bright red. Grandma grabbed my hand, squeezed it gently, and pointed toward the hallway. "Suitcase." I didn't hesitate. For the first time in my life, someone in my family wasn't telling me what I couldn't become. They were daring me to become exactly who I'd always wanted to be. 23 minutes later, we were racing down the interstate in my grandmother's ancient hover wagon, and I was beginning to suspect she'd been hiding an entirely different personality for the last 80 years. I clutched the dashboard as the old vehicle drifted around a curve that definitely wasn't designed for drifting. "Grandma!" I yelled. "What?" "We're sideways." "I know," she shouted back with a grin. "It's faster this way." The hover wagon beeped angrily. A cheerful computer voice announced, "Warning! Responsible driving mode has been permanently disabled." Grandma winked. "I disabled that in 2089. It kept criticizing me." I stared at her. "You can do that? You can do almost anything if you're stubborn enough." I laughed so hard I nearly forgot my parents were probably furious. Then my communicator buzzed for the 18th time. "Dad." Ignored. "Mom." Ignored. "Dad again." Ignored. Grandma glanced at the screen. "If he calls one more time, answer it." "You want me to?" "No." She smiled mischievously. "I want me to." Another call came through. She pressed the answer button. My father's face immediately appeared. "Turn that car around." Grandma adjusted her glasses. "Oh dear." Dad looked hopeful. "I think the connection is breaking. I'm speaking perfectly clearly." "No, no." She dramatically leaned toward the dashboard. "All I hear is someone making poor life choices." Then she ended the call. I burst into laughter. "You've been waiting years to say that, haven't you?" Approximately 60. Behind us, another vehicle suddenly appeared on the highway. My parents. Dad had somehow borrowed Uncle Frank's oversized cargo cruiser, a vehicle built to transport farm equipment rather than chase rebellious grandmothers. It bounced dramatically every time it hit a bump. Grandma checked the mirror. "They're gaining." She pressed another button. "What does that do?" "No idea." A loud fan unfolded from the roof. Instead of increasing speed, it inflated an enormous camping awning over the car. I blinked. "That's not helpful." "No." She pushed another button. The awning folded away. A coffee machine extended from the dashboard. It appears I found breakfast. I laughed until tears filled my eyes. Grandma! What? Have you ever actually read the labels? They're suggestions. Eventually, after pressing what seemed like every button in the vehicle, she found turbo mode. The old hover wagon shot forward so violently that my backpack flew into the back seat. There we go! She cheered. Behind us, Dad's cargo cruiser struggled to keep up. He's driving something with the aerodynamics of a refrigerator, Grandma said proudly. We'll lose him. We crossed into the interstellar transit district by noon. Towering space elevators stretched into the clouds while hundreds of shuttles carried travelers between planets. Humans walked beside dozens of alien species. Some floated. Some glided. Some rolled on wheels instead of legs. One tiny blue alien politely apologized after accidentally sneezing glitter across my jacket. Another giant reptilian businessman stopped to ask Grandma for directions because, somehow, she looked like she knew where everything was. She did. Third docking platform, she answered confidently. The alien bowed respectfully. You have saved me 43 minutes. I've been saving people from wasting time my whole life. At the customs terminal, we joined a long line of students heading toward the Academy shuttle. An elderly alien officer with silver skin scanned Grandma's identification. His 4 golden eyes widened. No. He looked at her again. Evelyn? Grandma blinked. Tarek? The officer laughed so loudly that 3 nearby security drones turned toward him. I cannot believe you're still causing trouble. She hugged him warmly. You got old. So did you. I wear it better. He chuckled. I looked between them. You two know each other? He smiled. Many years ago, your grandmother attended public lectures at the Academy. I turned toward her in shock. You never told me. She shrugged. I wasn't allowed to enroll. Tarek nodded sadly. She was one of the brightest students who never officially became a student. He looked directly at me. Your grandmother asked more questions than the professors could answer. Grandma grinned proudly. I considered that a compliment. Without another word, Tarek stamped our travel permits. Welcome to the Academy. As we thanked him and hurried toward the shuttle platform, I wasn't looking where I was going. I collided directly into someone. Books, tablets, and holographic notes scattered across the floor. Oh no! I dropped to my knees. I'm so sorry. So am I, a calm voice replied. I looked up. He was beautiful. At least, I assumed he was. He belonged to a species I'd never seen before. His skin shimmered like moonlight on water. 4 emerald eyes blinked independently before focusing on me. His silver hair floated gently as though gravity had only partially convinced it to cooperate. Embarrassed, I began gathering his books. I wasn't paying attention. You possess excellent collision accuracy, he said seriously. I froze. Thank you? He tilted his head. Was that not considered a compliment among humans? Grandma quietly covered her mouth to hide a laugh. I was attempting romance. I blinked. Romance? His expression became even more confused. Our cultural handbook says human females appreciate honesty. I suppose we do. You have symmetrical eyebrows. I stared. My eyebrows? They are magnificent. Grandma completely lost the battle against laughter. She leaned toward me and whispered loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. Oh, sweetheart. She nudged my shoulder. Keep this one. The alien's cheeks shifted to a soft shade of violet. In my culture, he explained, intelligence and symmetrical facial features indicate excellent compatibility. I couldn't stop smiling. Well, for the record. I handed him his last tablet. I think your flirting is terrible. He sighed dramatically. I feared that. But, I laughed. It's also kind of adorable. For the first time, all 4 of his eyes smiled before the rest of his face caught up. Before either of us could say another word, angry shouting echoed through the terminal. There they are. Dad. He had finally caught up. Grandma sighed. I was hoping we'd have another 5 minutes. The alien looked toward my furious parents, then back at me. I suspect your educational journey is going to be exciting. Grandma adjusted her jacket and cracked her knuckles. My dear. She smiled confidently. We're just getting started. My father stormed through the shuttle terminal with my mother hurrying behind him, both of them looking as if they had personally declared war on higher education. Travelers stepped aside, not because they were frightened, but because they were curious. Nothing attracted attention in a busy spaceport quite like an angry middle-aged man yelling at an 80-year-old woman who looked thoroughly entertained. There you are! My father shouted. Grandma folded her arms. Congratulations, she replied. You found us. I was beginning to think your navigation system had given up. This ends now. Oh? She asked. I didn't realize you were in charge of my schedule. My mother stepped forward with an exhausted expression. Please, Mother. She's confused. She doesn't know what's best. Grandma gasped dramatically. I know exactly what's best. She pointed at me. Her future. A small crowd had already formed. An alien family carrying glowing luggage stopped walking. 2 academy students sat on a nearby bench with snacks, obviously deciding this unexpected family drama was better than whatever entertainment they'd originally planned. Even the silver-skinned customs officer, Tarek, quietly crossed his arms and watched with interest. Dad noticed the audience but refused to lower his voice. A daughter belongs with her family, one student whispered. This should be good, Dad continued. College fills young women with dangerous ideas. A nearby professor nearly dropped his tablet. Another instructor slowly removed his glasses. An elderly alien with 6 arms politely raised one hand. Excuse me, he interrupted. Dad frowned. What? You appear to be standing in the central courtyard of a university. The entire crowd erupted into laughter. My father looked around for the first time. Above us stretched a massive holographic banner. Welcome to the Interstellar Human Academy. Below it stood hundreds of students representing dozens of worlds. Grandma couldn't resist. If you're going to deliver an anti-education speech, she said sweetly, this is certainly the boldest possible location. Even my mother covered her face for a second. Dad ignored the laughter. I don't care where we are. Clearly, Grandma replied. Campus security politely approached. One officer smiled. Sir, we support freedom of speech. Dad looked victorious. See? The officer continued. But we recommend speeches that have at least a 50% chance of convincing the audience. More laughter echoed across the courtyard. Realizing he was losing the crowd, my father muttered something under his breath and stomped away toward the admissions building, determined to stop my enrollment another way. Grandma leaned toward me. I almost feel bad. You almost? No. A few minutes later I found myself sitting outside the admissions office reviewing interview notes with the alien student I'd bumped into earlier. He introduced himself properly. My name is Kalen. I'm glad we met. I am also pleased our collision resulted in friendship rather than permanent injury. I smiled. I think we've both recovered. He opened one of his tablets. You seem nervous. I am. You should not be. Easy for you to say. He tilted his head. Actually, I was terrified during my entrance interview. You were? I accidentally called the headmaster's ceremonial robe an impressive blanket. I burst out laughing. What happened? He laughed for 5 minutes. Then? He admitted it was an impressive blanket. The tension melted from my shoulders. Kalen noticed. In my world, he said softly, the most admired people are those who continue learning. Really? He nodded. Our poets say beauty fades, strength weakens, wealth disappears. He looked directly into my eyes. But curiosity grows brighter every year. His words settled quietly in my heart. No one had ever spoken about intelligence like it was something beautiful. Back home, it had always been treated like something I needed to hide. I wish my parents believed that. They fear change. I know. My people once feared education as well. They did? Long ago. He smiled gently. Then we realized ignorance had never solved a single problem. Before I could answer, Grandma walked over carrying 3 cups of coffee. I brought refreshments. She handed one to me. One to Kalen. Then she looked at him with exaggerated seriousness. So? He blinked. So? Do you respect intelligent women? He answered immediately. Absolutely. She nodded approvingly. Excellent. Kalen looked confused. Was there another acceptable answer? No. Grandma smiled. You passed. He looked at me. Did I just take an examination? I laughed. My grandmother gives surprise tests. I should study harder. The admissions office doors finally opened. A coordinator called my name. My stomach flipped. This is it. Grandma squeezed my shoulder. Remember something. I looked at her. You are not asking for permission to learn. Her eyes sparkled with determination. You already earned your place. I nodded. As we entered the interview room, 3 professors and 1 alien dean greeted us warmly. The interview started professionally enough. They asked about engineering, research, space exploration, future goals. Everything went smoothly. Until one professor asked, "What inspired you to pursue higher education?" Before I could answer, Grandma raised her hand. The dean smiled. Yes? My son inspired her. I stared. What? Grandma continued. By constantly telling her she couldn't do it. The interview panel tried not to laugh. One professor failed. Another covered his mouth. The dean finally asked, "Would the applicant also like to answer?" "Yes," I said, laughing. "But honestly, she's not wrong." The room relaxed immediately. Instead of feeling like an examination, it became a conversation. We discussed science, human cooperation with alien civilizations, and why education mattered. Nearly an hour later, the dean stood, extended his hand, and smiled. "Congratulations." My heart nearly stopped. "We would be honored to welcome you to the academy." I had done it. Years of dreaming. Years of studying. Years of hearing that I wasn't supposed to aim this high. None of it mattered anymore. As I stepped outside with my acceptance confirmed, Kalen was waiting. So? I couldn't stop smiling. I got in. Without hesitation, he reached into his bag and produced 2 drink vouchers. "I was hoping you would." I laughed. "What are those?" "The campus cafe." "You planned this?" I was optimistic. He hesitated for a moment before adding, "Would you, perhaps, allow me to continue practicing human romance over coffee?" I smiled so widely my cheeks hurt. "I'd like that." Behind us, Grandma clapped her hands triumphantly. "I knew it!" She looked toward the sky and laughed. "Best road trip I've ever taken." The years that followed became the happiest and busiest of my life. The Interstellar Human Academy was everything I had imagined and somehow even better. Every classroom was filled with students from different worlds, each bringing ideas that challenged everything I thought I knew. One lecture might involve designing faster-than-light engines, while the next focused on how humans and alien civilizations could solve problems together without letting cultural misunderstandings start another diplomatic disaster. I loved every exhausting minute of it. Grandma called me every Sunday without fail. Her conversations always followed the same pattern. "Are you eating properly?" "Yes." "Are you sleeping enough?" "I try." "Are you still smarter than your professors?" "Grandma." "What?" "It's a reasonable question." She never lost her sense of humor. Neither did Kalen. His attempts at human romance somehow became both better and worse at the same time. On our first official date, he arrived carrying flowers. Except they weren't flowers. They were glowing plants from his home planet that gently hummed every time they detected happiness. When he handed them to me, they started singing. The entire campus cafe turned to stare. I thought they were quiet, he admitted. They're beautiful. They're louder than expected. By our third year together, everyone on campus knew us as the couple who accidentally created comedy wherever we went. One afternoon, Kaylin confidently told my classmates that I was the most efficient human female available. The room exploded with laughter. He frowned. Again. I have used the incorrect romantic expression? I smiled and kissed his cheek. You'll get there eventually. I hope before retirement. Even Grandma adored him. Whenever he visited during school holidays, she insisted on teaching him human card games. He never won. Not once. After losing for the 15th consecutive time, he finally asked, Are these truly the rules? Grandma smiled innocently. They are now. He looked at me. I believe your grandmother cheats. Grandma gasped dramatically. I prefer the phrase creatively interprets victory. Years passed faster than I expected. Then graduation day finally arrived. Thousands of families gathered beneath the academy's enormous crystal dome. Students lined up in brilliant robes representing dozens of civilizations. As I waited backstage, I spotted my parents taking their seats. They looked older. Quieter. Life had softened the certainty that had once filled every conversation. They hadn't apologized for trying to stop me. Not completely. But over the years they had slowly begun asking about my classes instead of criticizing them. My father even admitted that my engineering projects sounded more complicated than fixing bread ovens. For him, that was practically poetry. Then I saw Grandma. She wore a bright blue dress and walked proudly with the same confidence she'd shown the night she stole me away from home. She waved enthusiastically. I told you we'd get here. You certainly did. The graduation ceremony began. Names echoed through the massive hall as students crossed the stage. When my name was called, I walked forward to thunderous applause. Receiving my diploma felt incredible. But the biggest surprise was still waiting. The Academy's chancellor returned to the podium. Before today's ceremony concludes, she announced, there is one final honor. The audience quieted. Many years ago, a young woman was accepted into higher education but was forced to abandon that dream because of outdated traditions. I slowly turned toward Grandma. She looked just as confused as everyone else. Although she never became an official student, former professors recorded her attendance at public lectures and described her as one of the brightest minds they had ever met. Tarek stepped onto the stage carrying a beautiful diploma. He smiled warmly. I told you we'd meet again. The Chancellor looked directly at Grandma. Today, the Academy proudly awards you an honorary degree for a lifetime devoted to encouraging knowledge, courage, and opportunity. The audience rose to its feet. Thousands of students, families, professors, aliens from dozens of civilizations. Everyone applauded. Grandma stood completely frozen. For me? She whispered. For you, the Chancellor replied. Slowly, she walked onto the stage. When the diploma was placed into her hands, tears filled her eyes. She stared at it for several long seconds before looking toward the audience. Then, with perfect timing, she cleared her throat. Well? The room became silent. It only took me 60 years. She held up the diploma proudly. But I still graduated before my son's excuses did. The entire dome erupted with laughter. Even my father laughed. He laughed harder than anyone. When the applause settled, he stood and walked toward the stage. For a moment, nobody knew what he intended. He stopped in front of Grandma. Then he looked at me. I was wrong. 3 words. Simple. Honest. I thought protecting you meant limiting you. He shook his head. It didn't. He smiled sadly. You became exactly who you were supposed to become. Grandma patted his shoulder. Took you long enough. I know. You inherited your stubbornness from me. I've noticed. The audience chuckled again. Later that afternoon, we walked across campus together. Kaylin slipped his hand into mine. The humming flowers he had given me years earlier were now blooming in the academy gardens after he had donated seeds from his home world. Students passed us laughing, studying, dreaming about futures that hadn't been written yet. Grandma looked around the campus with quiet satisfaction. I used to wonder what my life would have been if I'd been allowed to study here. I squeezed her hand. You changed your own story anyway. She smiled. And yours? Kaylin nodded. In my culture, heroes are not remembered because they win battles. What are they remembered for? I asked. They open doors that others tried to keep closed. I looked at my grandmother. An ordinary woman who had climbed into an old hover wagon, ignored every protest, and driven across half the sector because she refused to let history repeat itself. That single decision changed my future. It repaired a broken family. It gave me a career I loved. It brought an unexpected romance into my life. And it proved something every civilization in the galaxy could understand. Humanity's greatest strength was never its technology or its starships. It was the courage to challenge old fears, stand up for the next generation, and believe that one determined person, even an 80-year-old grandmother with terrible driving habits, could change the course of an entire family's future.